up, stop when the clock hits 13. You've been working, but you're flirting with the weekend. You can freak out. 1 in a million. You're a gem, shine when the light grows dim. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome to Homeschooling 101-ish. Listen, we have found ourselves in new waters going into this school year. I know this is a game-changing year for many of you, and we're all seeking to make the best decision that works for each of us. And I wanted to open up a bit about my process in deciding to homeschool and share and really document, I guess, my journey over the last month to 2 months of digging into this topic, gathering resources, thinking about how this may work for us, and then I posted it to the blog. So a lot of what I'm going to just take you through right now, you could reference over at the blog if you go to wholefit.com/blog/homeschool, or if you just Google wholefit homeschool, I'm sure it'll come up. You're going to find a pretty juicy post there. I've basically documented and tracked everything I've come across that I found helpful in making this decision. And then I've also created for you some templates that are, within my wheelhouse of life by design. So you're going to find templates there for creating daily rhythms, a weekly routine, a family vision as we head into what is new for many of us. But I want to open up this conversation today, sharing a bit of my heart, and then I'm going to be bringing my friend Monica on. She is a homeschooling mama. She lives in Canada. She's actually been homeschooling for over 10 years, and she recently published a book called Homeschool by Design. And she's just lovely. I really am excited for you to meet her, and we are going to have a conversation. We'll go for about 40 or 45 minutes answering the top questions that I've certainly had, and questions that I've seen, circling around as I've seen this topic come up so much over the last few weeks. I mean, it's definitely a decision many of us have on our hearts right now. But I want to open up by emphasizing how important it is that regardless of what decision you make going into the school year, it's great. It's going to be great for your family. It's going to be the right decision for you. And I mean, the key thing in a year like this, in these unprecedented times, is knowing that you can pivot if needed. So maybe you start the kids back off at school, and I don't know. So, you realize midway that things feel tumultuous and you want to bring them home. You can do that. Maybe you start off by homeschooling and you take it till holiday break and they go back to school in January. I mean, this is certainly a time where you can be flexible in your approach. Now, we have decided to homeschool. And years ago, I would have told you that I would never be a homeschooling mom. Never, ever. And I would probably chalk that up to my fear of thinking, no, I need my time. I love structure. I need boundaries. I'm a better mom if I'm not with my kids all day. I think there are a lot of these stories circling around. And then in the last few years, we started our girls off in public school, and then we transitioned to a Waldorf school a few years ago. And it has truly been a special experience, an amazing experience. And what I'm sharing with you today has nothing to do with Waldorf. As our world shifted fast in March, I could feel this tug on my heart that I knew we were going to be making this decision. See, the school falls under the provincial mandates, which require, here in Ontario at least, that kids in grade 4 and up are required to wear masks. And that's a hard no for us in our home. So that was kind of the leading reason that we're not sending them. But there were a few other reasons. And I think if we're all being honest and aware of what's happening, it seems obvious that there will be a second lockdown this fall. And even if there isn't, I think it's important that we come into this school term with a plan if and when that does happen. And that definitely went into our decision. But everyone's weighing different things, right? Work schedules, demands of the job, time that you may or may not have to put towards this, finances, family values. I think a big thing out there is, what if I homeschool, my child's not going to have any interaction socially, and maybe that's something you really value for them. So you're willing to trade in some other concerns to make that decision. But whatever you decide, it's the right decision for your family, full stop. Okay, we talk about that as we go through the interview today, and I reiterate that several times in the blog. So if you hop over to that blog post I referenced, wholefit.com/blog/homeschool, you're going to find my approach to this is very structured. I need that. I know myself best. I know how we thrive as a family. And, if you're somebody who prefers to flow it and follow more of an unschooling approach, then the content I put together largely won't be for you. But there probably is some stuff in there that, may help you. So if you determine that you are a family that would rather flow it and follow more of an unschooling method, maybe there are a few things that I share within the resources that you would find helpful. But what I'm sharing with you is my focus on truly making this something that will work for our family, and my commitment to living by design. And I think that this is really an opportunity for us all to take something that's messy and a bit chaotic and make something really beautiful out of this. And that is a key thing I want to emphasize, that this is a time and an invitation for you as a family to really walk out your values this year, to really put them as top priority, and let that be the guide of what decision you end up making. So once I had made the decision, that we were going to homeschool, I don't mean I made the decision, we made the decision, but then I kicked in with, my process of pulling various things together. So I wanted to walk you through that really quickly, and then just share some of the templates you can find over on the blog. So the first thing I did was I thought about our home environment, and I recognized that the girls were going to need an area that was quieter, somewhere that they could, that would trigger that learning environment for them. So we have a space on our lower level that is, really quiet, and we could set up a desk area, and I could create that environment that felt somewhat like a classroom, although a lot of people in the homeschooling community will tell you that that's not necessary. I just felt like I wanted to have a space so it wasn't like, they were trying to do their learning at the kitchen table while I was doing something in the kitchen. I just felt like that was going to be important for us. So you could think about that in your own home. Is there an area that you could establish, kind of like in the way that we honor our bedrooms for sleep? And there are a lot of experts that will say that you don't want to have a TV in your bedroom, because then the mind can't relax and settle. So I think of the classroom environment within our home in that same way. And you'll see just a few pictures I took of the little area we set up. It's honestly nothing too crazy, but it's just an area that encourages learning. Then I took a look at what school supplies we had on hand, and I purchased anything I thought we might need. And I mean, very minimal things, right? Like a few new binders, a fresh set of pencils, and I actually included some of the things that we grabbed online. I've linked up a little shop for you in the blog post. I purchased a dry erase 30-day calendar. That's one of the methods I'm going to use to track our learning. But, I think the key thing here is you don't need to go crazy. It does not need to look like a classroom that your kids might be used to. It just needs to be, I think, an environment that really encourages creativity and learning. When they know they sit down, they're focused, and they have what they need to do that. Then I talked with friends who homeschool, and this is what I love most, I think, about this community is moms show up for each other, right? This is a known thing. And I think that in the homeschooling community, there's just such an abundance of information sharing and support. And there are so many things out there. I mean, this is a vast world. When you start to look at it, you're like, wow, I had no idea how many curriculums were out there, how many different approaches were out there. And it can actually start to feel overwhelming. So I think it's smart to talk to a few different people maybe somebody who takes more of what would be your approach, and then somebody who doesn't, right? So I talked to some friends of mine who unschool. I talked to friends of mine who are very structured and do homeschool only in a couple hours a day. I talked to friends of mine who do a little bit of both, where they're just kind of meshing together different things to see what works for them. As I would have these conversations, I gathered a library of resources, which is what you'll find on the blog, and I organized them by topic, mostly to help me. We have purchased a curriculum. We've gone with the good and the beautiful, but I also want to be able to flex a little bit there. On the days when we're working on math, I might want to pull in some different worksheets from different curriculums. So I organized these first for my own brain, and then I've posted them on the blog. You can find, they're all quick links that lead out to various worksheets or apps or videos based on topic. So hopefully you find that piece helpful. I also created a playlist on Netflix and YouTube Kids with various documentaries and educational videos, and I've linked those up in the blog as well. But I thought this was good because, for those afternoons where especially if you're someone who runs your own business from home like me, you want to have something in your pocket you could give your kids to do that still falls under the heading of learning, but doesn't require you to be doing the teaching and guidance at that time. So I think it's good to have something ready to go for those rainy day moments, What else? I created a folder on our devices, because there are actually some really cool apps out there that will provide learning in specific areas. So, for example, Duolingo is what we're going to use for my kids to continue their French, developing their language skills there. And then there's a piano app that I found that I linked up for you because my girls are just trying to learn piano. So they're going to do that one afternoon. So I put them in a folder on our phone or iPad, so it's something that they can easily access, and labeled it H School. So they're just all in one place. Now, this next thing we've been focusing on is, I think, the biggest aspect of this, in my opinion, of course, and that is the importance of the morning and evening routines and really anchoring that. So we've been working on that as consistently as possible with the girls for the last month, for sure, just so that as we integrate homeschooling, it doesn't feel like this big stressful thing. Like we're literally just bringing it into our day. We're choosing to homeschool between 9 and 12-ish. And the morning and the evening routines that we've been working on are really important to help bookend that day. So the templates that I've created for you will help you in designing that. And I've also shared what our typical day in the life as we integrate homeschool will look like. And it's very similar to a typical day that we've been having even through the summer. We've kept that focus on their morning and evening routines. And if you haven't been doing that, that's okay. I would say that is a good first place to start with kids, just to really help them ease into that. Because the cool thing is, once you get something established there, it's easy to add something in. The tougher thing is just starting. So you want to keep it small, because you can always layer in some different pieces. For example, we bought a composter a few weeks ago. So it was easy for me to add taking the kitchen compost to the backyard compost to their morning routine, because we already had the 4 things that are now habit for them. They don't even need to look at a list or anything. So when I added that one more thing in, it was no big deal. And then the last thing I did as we've been preparing for this is I did a few assessments with the kids to get a better understanding of where they were at. And this was a little bit stressful for them, I would say, because I found that they didn't want to mess up or make a mistake. And that really showed me that that's going to be the beauty of this, is teaching them that that's okay. That's actually great to make mistakes, to not know the answer, and to stay curious and to stay learning. And that's something I'm going to really focus on with them. But something that a friend of mine, Jenny, reminded me of was the love languages for kids. My girls love doing this. And I've actually, I think we did it with the kids a few years ago. I'm not totally sure on that, because it didn't actually leave enough of an impact for us to, lock it in and remember. Chris and I have done it a few times, and it's great. It's such a great tool. And so what I did with the girls was I did them separately. So one night I snuggled up with Chloe and we went through the assessment, and she loved answering the questions. And I did the same thing with Emmy the following night. And it was really cute because as I would ask the question, it's a this or that type of question, and they would light up. You could tell what answer they were going to choose. And it was so cute to see them answer it and realize that that's how they feel loved. And I think that how that tool really serves us, taking them through a homeschooling journey, is understanding how they want to receive praise and recognition. So that was really helpful. And then, something we've been spending time doing is really thinking about our vision for this as a family, dreaming up what this new experience could look and feel like, and really understanding that this can be exactly how we need it to be. So what I've shared on the blog is that we're sticking to a pretty structured 9 till 12 school day because I love the idea of them being done at lunch. And I love the idea of having that structure in place of focused time so that the rest of the day is free. So there isn't this kind of something weighing over us like we've got to get to all day. That just feels so good to me that they would be done at lunchtime and that we can really just live life together throughout the day. And when they're done, we can get out and just do whatever we want. And I mean, of course, there's that flexibility when you're homeschooling to not have any kind of schedule. It's just that that's what I know is going to work best for us. And it also allows me to compartmentalize times throughout the day when I know I'll be doing things that are important to me or things that are important to my business, so that it's not just loosey-goosey doing it wherever. So that's an important piece. And one of the templates I've created for you is just a space to map out your vision. Let your mind drift here. What would homeschooling allow you to do that you have not been able to do before? That's where you want to go first. And you want to think about those things that you and your partner, your spouse, and your children really value in a typical day, and make those the priority, and then work everything else around those things. I think that this season of our lives is happening for us all. I think it actually is a very beautiful reconstruction of the way we live our lives, and it's an invitation for us to reclaim sovereignty over our children and our homes and our health. And I think homeschooling is definitely a key way to be able to do that. So I think there's a lot to be, although I'm nervous, and I know if you're listening to this and you're entering homeschooling for the first time, you may have nerves and fears as well. But there's also a lot that excites me about this. I think, when I think about my girls and the age that they're at, they're going into grade 4 and 6. And I believe the most important thing I'll instill into them as they continue to grow is that ability to stay curious and to trust their ideas and their intuition and to go their own way. I think about this time and this year that we're experiencing as a world, and this has really been an opportunity for us as parents to model that for our kids, that even when it feels like everything is spinning and chaotic out there, we can control so much within our inner world, not only inside of us, but within the four walls of our home. And that's really where I feel we create the new world, is the work that we're doing within our home. So anyway, you guys, I wanted to open up this topic, just sharing my heart a little bit and what I've prepared for you over on the blog. The next part of this is going to go into a conversation with my friend Monica. We go through those top questions, like, top concerns people have, not having enough qualifications or not enough money or not enough time. We talk about logistics, how to know what to do when you're first starting out. There are certainly government regulations, and they vary. What I actually learned was in Ontario, where we live in Canada, it's very different than other provinces, just like it would be in various states throughout the US. So you'd want to get familiar with those. And we go through, some various approaches. We don't actually get into specific curriculums when we talk, but I have listed out some of the most popular ones I came across and the one that we've decided to do. what else do we get into? Just, it was just really delightful. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Chances are, if you have questions about homeschooling, they will be answered during my conversation with her. But she mentions her book, and she mentions a Facebook group that she has created called Homeschool by Design. And that group's really helpful if you want to pop into it, request to join it. You can ask questions there. A very helpful community there, which I've appreciated as I've been navigating this. But then, like I said, if you want to pop over to the blog, you'll find just a real rich post of resources and templates that I think and hope will serve you in this season of life. Most of all, I just really want you to know that you're not alone. And you know what, Mama? You've got this. You've got this. You know your kids best. And, let's just roll with this and focus on what we can control and make the best of this. And I think it's going to be amazing and beautiful. And I think we're going to see many innovative, creative things come out of this next year as communities rise up, as parents rise up and reclaim what is ours. In it together with you. Enjoy this conversation with Monica. Head over to the blog and make sure you check out her book, Homeschool by Design.
Oh, I hear you.
I hear you.
Okay.
Whatever, social media.
You can't stop us.
Nice try. Okay, can you guys hear me? Can you hear Monica? Somebody tell us what we want to hear. We're going to wait. There's a bit of a delay.
Okay, we're seeing yeses. I see yeses.
Anybody? Bueller? Okay. Oh, okay. What a mess. That's okay.
That's okay.
That's what's happening right now in our world is we're making beauty out of a mess. Okay?
Exactly.
And I am so excited to have you on. For those of you just popping in over from Facebook, we have about 200 or so on live right now. Instagram caps us at an hour. So our mission today is to probably jam for about 40 minutes together, do some questions, and be out within an hour. We probably have until right at 3 o'clock Eastern, okay?
15 minutes.
That good for you?
Totally. I'm in.
All right. Right on. Well, welcome in, you guys. This is a show today completely about homeschooling and perhaps pivoting from what you are used to doing. I know so many of us are in that boat right now. And so I wanted to have my special guest on today. I'm going to intro you in just a moment, Monica. But yeah, like so many of you, we've been navigating new waters in our house these past few months. And with so much chaos and confusion out there, many of us have turned the focus onto the walls within our home. And this is where I believe our new world will be built. I think that we are creating something really special through this experience as a collective. And I think one of those areas that's going to truly turn out to be beautiful is how we pivot through this time when it comes to our children and especially when it comes to school. Now, so many of us are making this decision right now, and there are several areas that each family has to consider and weigh, right? There are work responsibilities, there are demands in the workplace. Many of us are coming into this decision typically working outside of the home. There are demands on our time, there are financial demands, there are health and safety concerns. I mean, this is a big decision that a lot of us are making. And I want to open up this conversation and perhaps create a container emphasizing something very important, because something I'm seeing happen online quite a bit right now is there's a lot of judgment and there's a lot of division and there's a lot of weighing in and sharing opinions that haven't been asked for. And I think with this topic especially, there can be even more of that. And so I want to emphasize how important it is that we all understand as parents that whatever we decide going into this school year is perfect for our family. It is the right decision to make for our own situation, full stop, right? Nobody else has the right to weigh in on that. So you are the most qualified person to make this decision. Not your friends, not your child's previous teacher, not your parents, not your in-laws, you. And I really hope that through our conversation today, you leave this feeling like, okay, I feel a little clearer on a direction I was feeling like I might take. And if you're planning to not homeschool, maybe you just want to join us for this hour to hear a little bit more about what it's about, because maybe that's a decision that you may make down the road. So Monica, I am stoked to have you on. I want to just quickly intro you, and then I want to go right into some questions and just get into the meat of this conversation together. So guys, Monica, she's a Canadian mama like me, okay? She's an entrepreneur and she has a huge passion for teaching. She's been homeschooling, home educating for over 10 years. And she recently published a book called Homeschooling by Design. I'm a super fan of the title. She's been busy getting this baby out into the world. And so I'm really pumped to have her on. She specializes in helping families do that transition. So I know so many of you are doing that transition right now. You're thinking about what that might look like to go from more of a systematic approach to schooling coming into your home. So I'm thrilled to have her on. And I want to dive into some questions. And when I was mapping out these questions, the very first thing I wanted to get right into was understanding what it felt like for you back in, you started homeschooling in 2009?
That's right, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take us back to that time in your life. What was it like making that decision? Did you face opposition at that time? And then I want you to also describe, how is it different now for you? Like if you were to contrast that.
So we actually made the decision before 2009. I used to work in the school system, and I worked there until 2005, at which point I left my beautiful job and pension and all the things that people tell you never to leave for to become an entrepreneur. But I did that because I felt the call, and the school system just was not what I expected education to look like. I remember one specific example in mind where a kindergarten teacher, when the kids all went outside, they had just finished a craft making birds. And she went and she rearranged all the birds, like re-glued them down because some of the beaks were in the wrong position. And like, that was one of my very first experiences where I realized this is not for me. And all I wanted to do was be a teacher. So after 2 years, I quit from the encouragement of my husband, who was an entrepreneur and still is. And he was like, why don't you, sorry, I'm just repositioning my phone here so I don't have to hold it.
I know, it's a little different when you dual stream, right?
I know, I'm like, oh, I need to use my hands. What's going on? We're better now. So we made the decision. I left the school system, and we had made the decision that once we decided to have kids, that they would be homeschooled. So we made that choice long before even having the kids. So it wasn't super surprising, I don't think, to our families. And at the time, I think there was a big shift of more people realizing that homeschooling is not what it used to be. And it wasn't for, I don't know, just a lot of stigma was revolving around homeschooling.
Totally.
That was starting to be let go of. There is still a lot of that, but it was starting to be released. And our families were very, very encouraging, actually, because they knew I had such a passion. And they even saw what I was doing from like birth to like preschool, and they knew for sure that the boys were in the right hands in terms of our schooling. So we didn't actually have a lot of that. And even going out into the world, a lot of people would say, I wish I could homeschool, or I wish my grandkids could be homeschooled because of bullying or so many other reasons. And I feel like COVID has really just given a chance for parents to step into that role that they've been so afraid to kind of step into. And it's giving them a little bit of I don't know, a taste of it, I guess, if they have gone the way of homeschooling versus the distance learning, because that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if ever there's been like the whisperings that you'd want to try homeschooling, this is the year, really, right? So how does 2009, Monica, contrast to how you homeschool today?
I was changed probably 2 or 3 years ago, where I really became confident in who I was as a homeschooling mother. I used to compare myself like crazy. And so if I saw somebody doing it one way, I thought I wasn't good enough, and I thought I wasn't doing it the right way. And honestly, that is where my book came from. It came from the new Monica, who was like, please take this. If nothing else, take that. You can totally design your homeschool just like you can design your life exactly how you wish for it to be. And that is like the biggest gift that I think I got from my growth over 11 years, almost 12 of homeschooling, is that I can do it my own way. And I never stick to the same way that I start with. So like we're prepping right now for grade 6. And I have this idea in my head, which I do every year at this time. And I know it's not going to play out this way because we'll start shifting. We'll become more unschoolers at one point, and we'll just kind of throw curriculum out the window and just go with our passions. Or the boys will be super led by a specific project that they love or an interest that they have. And we'll do more like project-based homeschooling. Like there's just so many routes to go. And you're never limited. Like you're always learning. We're always learning as adults, and our kids are always learning. They can't help it. So I think when a lot of parents are so fearful about, you know, am I qualified? Can I do this? You so can do this. Like you're doing it right now, just being here. I get really fired up sometimes.
I love what you just said, but I actually have so many questions about what you just said. So hopefully I'm addressing what some of you are thinking as you hear that, because when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that sounds lovely. But what if I'm not doing it right? What if I screw up? What if I'm not qualified? Like I want to go over some of those concerns that I know are out there that I certainly have as well. I think one of my biggest ones is like, what if I don't have the time? What if this actually becomes very stressful in our home? I want to identify 3 main concerns I know are out there that I've had. So let's talk about that one first. Not having enough time.
Well, you're one to teach on like time management and stuff too. That is like so amazing. And I think there's a lot of lessons in that when it comes to homeschooling. And it doesn't need to look like school where you have to sit down at 9 and you do all your work until 3 o'clock. Some people who work, you know, night shifts and they sleep during the day, they homeschool their kids on weekends, or they homeschool their kids in the evenings, or some people just homeschool 3 or 4 days a week. And I think that's a part of another reason why I'm here. I am here like in the world right now to tell people that it can be done in a way that works for you and your family. If you feel like you don't have enough time, I promise you, you can find the time, because it does not take that long to educate a couple of kids versus what we see in schools. Schools are, you know, let's say 9 till 4, 9 till 3 o'clock. There is so much going on in that time that the actual instructional time for, I think it's under like between like pre-K and like grade 2 or 3, it's about 45 minutes a day of actual instruction time.
Isn't that unbelievable? I read that. You had posted that somewhere, and I'm like, that is so good for all of us to understand, is that when you actually look at it, kids are not really learning more than that all day.
They're learning the whole time. Exactly. So let's say you're really struggling with time management. So I'm also working from home. Some of the things that people can do is, some people I've seen give their kids quiet time, like legit 2 hours. Their kids have to stay in their bedrooms and they can read, they can do crafts, whatever's available in their bedrooms. That is quiet time. And it also is, it's teaching the kids a few things, which is like learning to be with yourself. So not having to be preoccupied from somebody else, whether it's a sibling or a parent. So it's allowing them to have their own time and understand how important that is, to fill their own buckets and find out what it is that inspires them to just be still and just be with themselves. And that gives us time, right? That's giving us the time that we need. And those 2 hours in an afternoon, I mean, you can crush so much when you know you have a specific amount of time. I know you teach that too. So
yeah, I mean, one of the things I always emphasize when it comes to, especially when people who run their own business from home, I always marvel at how much mothers get done in running businesses. It's amazing how much a mother can get done during a 45-minute nap time, right? Exactly. And I can see how a lot of our fears around the time aspect of homeschooling will diffuse pretty quickly when we realize that when we know we have like 90 minutes because they're focusing on something that doesn't necessarily need our overseeing and guidance at the time, we can get so much done in that 90 minutes and we actually become much more productive, right? I'm sure you found that because you do many things. Like you homeschool, you've authored a book, you run this huge vegan festival in Canada. What else do you do? You're a wellness advocate with doTERRA. Like, yeah. Busy, right?
For sure.
Okay, well, thank you for quelching that fear. The second fear I know is out there is, what if I screw up? What if I'm actually not good enough to teach my children?
So there's like 2 parts I like to think about this. The first is that is such probably one of the most common things is, what if I'm not qualified enough? Like, I'm not a teacher, or I don't have that like education background. Just the fact that you're like loving your kids, that is enough. If you don't know something, if you don't know how to teach, I actually say this in my book, if you don't know what the like periodic table thing is for mercury, you can find that online. Like, everything is online. I am not qualified to be an event producer, and I produce my event. So like, I was never qualified for that. I literally taught myself how to do that. So we can absolutely take our kids' education in our own hands, especially if you purchase a curriculum. If you purchase a curriculum, it's all there. It is literally walking you through the step-by-step things to do with your kids. It is so easy. Anybody can do it. You just have to have that love in your heart. And one of my favorite quotes actually is from Wayne Dyer, and he says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yes. So if you think of it that way, think of it like, okay, what am I actually fearing? What am I not qualified to teach? Is it math? Yeah. So Khan Academy is an incredible resource for parents. It literally teaches every step of every math from pre-K to college level. You can find the lesson for math. Math is a scary thing for me, so that's why I bring that up. But it's all out there. You guys can find it. You're so qualified. You love your kids. You're here. You're listening. You want to know this information. You are qualified. You're qualified.
Yeah, I think it's so important to face your fears head on. To, you know, when you have some track playing in your mind, just say, okay, when that happens, what will I do? You know, and just really get around it rather than having it be this big boogeyman, which, you know, we all seem to be dealing with at this time in our world anyway, right? Exactly. So one other fear I've come across is money, finances, you know, especially for those people coming out of public school, right? Is it expensive to homeschool?
It just depends. You can absolutely do it for free. I share a story actually about how we were at a point where we were building our businesses when our youngest was born. So 10 years ago, we were in so much debt. We had like next to no money, and I pulled that whole year off with like $100, like max, for that whole entire year's worth of curriculum, because you can find so much online. It just takes more work. So if you are really on a tight budget, YouTube is an incredible resource for every type of subject. Like, there's so many art things on there, like book stuff, and Pinterest is another beautiful place to find free resources. Bloggers are always putting out free content, and Teachers Pay Teachers. If anybody's not heard of that before, that website, it is also an amazing resource.
I haven't come across that. Cool.
Okay, yeah. Teachers Pay Teachers. So it's all teachers who are producing materials for their classrooms, or other homeschoolers producing materials, and they post it on there for sale. But a lot of things are free as samples, and then if you like it, you can purchase it. So that was a lot of what we did in those couple of years where we were like really tight on the budget. So it can be like basically free. You could spend like thousands if you want to. It just really depends on what you're looking for. If you want to hire tutors, if you want to do online classes, there are lots of different variations, but you can absolutely do it with a budget for sure.
Yeah, you can really make it work for your family. I had no idea how vast this community was. I mean, it is, you could spend a lot of money for sure, or you could not. I mean, it's totally up to you. All right, I want to get into some other questions. So, I mean, where do people start? So how do you actually start homeschooling? Like, I want you to walk us through what needs to be considered. Yeah. There's obviously government regulations depending on where you live, right? I'd love for you to speak to maybe where people could find that. But how do you actually begin? Like, do you homeschool all year, or do you start after Labor Day? Like, what's your plan there?
We homeschool all year, mainly because learning never ends. And that's kind of our viewpoint on it. We travel a ton. So we travel about a quarter of the year for sure, whether it be for doTERRA events or events that my husband has, or just for fun. We once decided to go to Disney and spent the month before we left just learning about like Disney stuff and everything. So you can literally just pick up and take off on whatever subject you want to. But I would say to start with, why do you want to homeschool? So right now, I feel like most parents are homeschooling for at least this year because of the situation that we're being put in right now. So make it really clear to yourself as to why you are here, why you are doing this, because that is going to be the piece that will hold you up when you're having a really hard day, because some days can be hard, guys. Like, it's not all butterflies and rainbows like we all wish it could be, right?
Yeah.
There's those hard days where you're like, I'm going to send you to school, even though you can't.
Oh, wait. That's downstairs.
Yeah, that's right. Go down to the schoolroom. But seriously, there will be those days, and you want to have that anchor that reminds you why you're here. So I would say then we look into the laws. So the laws are really, really easy to find. Just type in your province or your state and then homeschool laws, and it'll show up right away. So where we live in Ontario, there are no restrictions, which is amazing.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
I know, it's great. It's great. Other places have restrictions, or they require you to use a certain curriculum. And when you do so, you'll get a bit of funding. I prefer, much as all the other homeschoolers in Ontario who have been doing this for a while, we prefer to keep it the way that we have it now, because we are free to design our homeschools in a way that we are able to, which is fantastic. I mean, it just does give you that freedom. But not to say that places that have more restrictions are harder. It's just there might be some extra things for you to do. So the one restriction we have, which most places do have, is that you have to send what's called a letter of intent to your school board. So that just tells them that my child is no longer going to be going to school. I will be taking care of their education. And you send that to the school board, and then that's pretty much what we have in Ontario. My kids never went to school. We never signed them up for school. So that's something I never had to do. So for people who might be watching who haven't done that yet, if you've not registered your child, you are not required to do so by law if your state or province does ask for that. But yeah, look up those laws and check into that. So that would be the second thing I would say to do. The third thing is, and this is something I still do every year, is I do what I call a homeschool audit. I read about this years and years and years ago, and it basically gives you a chance to pay attention to what your children are doing. I know you teach the audit in your business, and it's kind of similar in the way that you're paying attention to what your children are doing over a 24 to 48 hour span, and writing down their questions and looking at what passions they have, anything that they're kind of leading themselves into. Watch what they're doing, see how they're learning. And then from there, you can kind of go with what homeschool method you want to go with. So,
so this audit you're talking about, you do before you choose a curriculum or, okay.
Yeah. And once you get to know where your kids are, it'll be very easy to pick a curriculum anyways. And I feel like a lot of people already know, like people who are nature-based will want something more nature-based, or those who love like literature will want to pick a literacy curriculum. So we all know our kids best, but it's really interesting to just let them be free, like actually free. If that means they're spending their entire day playing Minecraft and creating different worlds, that's what that means. And we let that go and we watch what happens. And that is just, it's a beautiful thing to kind of see them in their own element and see where their passions are taking them, and kind of take that with you into your homeschool time. And then after choosing a curriculum, which we can talk more about if that is also needed.
That was my next question. Yeah.
Was it?
Do you want to work that in as you're talking?
Yeah, I'll totally work that in. So choosing a curriculum, I think that the biggest thing is really considering how your children learn and how you want to be teaching as an educator. There are various curriculums out there. Majority of homeschool specific tend to be more like religious based. So for people who are looking for religion, it's very easy to find. For people who are on the more secular side, that could be a bit trickier. So just find what it is that you're looking for. Don't be afraid to ask questions about curriculum. But there's like Montessori curriculum, there's Waldorf curriculum, there's nature-based. I mean, you can come up with everything. There's game schooling. Game schooling is amazing. It's using like board games and puzzles and video games and all sorts of like game related things to learn. And I don't know, it's just so amazing to see the various ways. There's road schooling. So for people who love taking trips, you learn as you go, you learn on the road.
Wow.
There's so many varied ways of homeschooling. So you just pick really what fits with you and go with that and try it out. Now we switch it up all the time. So like I said, we could be unschoolers for like 2 months because I'm like, you know what? I just feel like we're in a time where we just need to throw curriculum out the window and just be. And that's okay. And we do that. We have that flexibility in homeschooling. We are designing it for ourselves. And then maybe we'll move more into Waldorf type rhythms and do quiet activities and then like active activities and then back to quiet and active and have that rhythm and that flow in our home. So I think seasons have a lot to do with this as well. There's seasons for, being outside, and then there's the seasons for coming inwards and snuggling up on the couch and reading a book. Sometimes we'll read a book for one whole entire day. Like a whole day we will read a book because we're so into
sweet.
it.
Yeah, I love that.
That's it. It's perfect for us, and it's how we design our lives. But other people need more structure. Some people need a strict schedule because that's what makes them feel confident and okay with life, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I love that we're different in that way, because it shows like you can do what you need for your family. It does not need to look like mine. It doesn't need to look like yours. It can be looking like each person in their own place.
Yeah, you know, and I think that's a really important point to make. You have to know yourself, right? You have to know, like coming into this decision, I know myself well enough to know I need structure and discipline, because that's where my freedom and ability to pivot and flow comes from. And so I put up a blog last night kind of navigating my process with this and what I know we're going to need in order for this to work in our home. And it's totally different than what I imagine you do. Or, you know, one of my good friends, Sarah Jansen, they unschool. And I'm like, what? I can't even wrap my head around it. Like, you know, but it works for them. And this is what I know will work for us. And I think that's a key thing, is that not only understanding your children and what they're passionate about and how, and their learning style, but also understanding you and what's going to be needed in your home for things to not become stressful. I think that's really important. And so I saw a few questions I just want to address in here. Several questions around like, are you allowed to mix curriculums? And I know, you know, yes, obviously it's like you can choose what you want. But one thing that helps me, and I don't know if this is available in every country, but in Canada, I could go on and see, okay, by the end of grade, you know, 4 and 6, which my girls are going into, this is what the province wants them to be at in terms of a certain level. Now, I think there's a lot that's changing. I mean, who knows what that even means come graduation time in a couple of years, right? But for right now, is that a good thing to work off of when you're, you know, deciding what you're going to learn?
So the expectations, which are, they have expectations in their school board and in their school system, just like we do here. And I know for certain there's a few other countries that have the same. So expectations are what are set out by the government to tell teachers what kind of list of things need to be taught. It's then up to the teachers to pick a curriculum or pick their way of teaching that individual thing. So one school in Toronto could be totally different from a school in London, even though they have the same expectations. And so that's really important for parents to understand when it does come to curriculum, is that it can look like anything you want it to look like, as long as you hit those little points. And one of the things that I also want to mention is documentation. That is where that comes in handy, is knowing the expectations. And then when you notice that happens, you can then document it and be like, check, we did that. Like that happened when we were cherry picking that day, right? And so you know, and you've seen your child actually hit that expectation. So I used to do that actually. I did that up until about grade 2 or 3, where I followed exactly the expectations, because again, I was really nervous. I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And so, but it became way too stressful for my own self. So my self did not require that anymore. And so now I don't look at that other than to look at what they're learning. So in grade 6, I know they're learning about ancient history, ancient like Greek. And so you're probably going down the same road since you're also doing grade 6.
Yeah,
so
I know, we should get together.
Yeah, we probably should. And so that's something that I wanted to bring in, because we love history. But there are other times where they're supposed to learn something. I think it was grade 2 or 3. They were supposed to learn something, but I was like, we're not learning that this year because we were traveling to Italy that year. So we were going to learn ancient Rome when we were traveling. So we switch that as we wish. And it's based on the experiences we're having or what we want to learn. Like I ask my boys the same thing. What do you guys want to learn? Because I see the expectations. I know where you kind of have to be. And then I'll fit it in to where we are as a family and what experiences we want to have.
Yeah, right on. Oh, I love that so much. So I think I just wanted to, I'm going to go back through the questions after, just so, because we'll probably cover them off. Tell us about a day in the life. So we just mentioned, you know, I come from a place of, we're going to need to be very structured with it in order for it to work. I don't know, it might be different in your home. I'd love to hear how you do it. What does it look like from when your kids wake up to, you know, getting ready for bed? Take us through.
Yeah, okay. So I wake up very early in summertime. So that's when I get my work in, is early in the morning until about 9 o'clock in the morning. So my boys typically wake up around 7 to 8, depending on I don't know, stuff. And so when they wake up in the morning, they'll usually play Fortnite because they have friends in Europe who they love to play with. So it's like kind of afternoon for them, and they get to play in the morning.
Yeah, cool.
So that works out really well. And then around 9 o'clock, we come down, we make breakfast together. We have like our little ritual / routine of like getting the diffuser ready and getting our supplements in our bodies and all that sort of stuff. And then we will typically do math and writing online. So we have online curriculums. And then after that, this is where I'm telling you, it is so varied for us. We are what's called eclectic homeschoolers. So we pull from various methods. So if we're feeling like I said, unschooling, we might be unschooling for like a month or 2 months, then we don't really have a set day. We kind of go with the flow every day, and we'll go do stuff out in the community, or we'll, learn something that we really want to learn. My 10-year-old, he is teaching himself right now how to make avatars in virtual reality worlds. So like, I don't even know how to do that. He's been doing that on his own, in his own way, because we had been unschooling for a while. So that has been his passion. So a typical day for me isn't really as typical.
There isn't one.
People would say.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over the place, but we will cover curriculum in the mornings, and then afternoons is really like our free time to kind of follow our own passions. My boys will help me with stuff that I might be working on. I get them really involved in business stuff because that's business class, and yeah, so it varies. It totally varies. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you.
No, I think that's so important for families to hear, because if you like structure, then you might want to take a look at what I'm doing, right? Like, although I'm brand new to this, I do think, like, I'm a huge advocate for having bookends to your day, right? To having that morning ritual and that evening ritual. We've really spent the last couple of months trying to anchor that in with the kids, so that when we bring in the homeschooling chunk or block that we do, we're not feeling that stress that we may feel if the morning's already been chaotic and so that's really been a focus of mine. But I think it's very refreshing for people to feel like there is that flexibility, and there's nobody that's going to come knocking at your door to check in on you or make sure that you're following some specific curriculum. It's very child-led too, right? Like it's really honoring your children's curiosity and what they're wanting to learn. And like, I love that example you gave of going to Italy and using that as such a learning experience. Or the other day, I saw a video you were talking about making a salad and how you would make that a lesson. Just something simple like making a salad turned into a lesson together in the kitchen, right? It's just, there's so many opportunities to learn. I love that. What about families who have multiple children at different ages? You do. How do you do that?
So I kind of cheated when my youngest really wanted to do grade 1 work with his brother. And so he is doing grade 6, even though he's supposed to be going into grade 5. So I technically have multiple ages, but we're doing the same grade. So that actually works. A lot of curriculums, they'll do like blended ages. So it'll be like 8 to 10 or 4 to 6 year olds. So if you buy a curriculum when you have children who are closer in age, they can kind of work together through that curriculum. But parents who have kids of varied ages who might need help in different ways, a lot of times they'll kind of take turns. So they might have one child do, let's say they're doing piano lessons. Their child might work on their piano while mom helps with the math, and then they'll switch, and the kid who was doing math will do something that doesn't require mom's attention. Or parents will kind of share the responsibility, and maybe something will be done in the evening that can be done with one parent, while something during the day can be done with another parent. Again, there's no like hard and fast rule about the times, right? So we're so flexible with times when we're homeschooling that it can be done anytime that's more convenient. So if there are many children in the household and there are some older kids who can help the younger ones, that's a really huge benefit too. Having, a 10 or 12-year-old read to a younger toddler or preschooler, and that teaches the older child a lot of responsibility, and the younger child gets to have that bonding time with their sibling that they might not otherwise have because they're so far apart in age. So it's just a matter of scheduling, I think, especially when it comes to different children. Having, a Google sheet with each child's curriculum that you want to be using, or the things that you want them to learn that year, and then kind of going from there and making a schedule that fits for the whole family, really. And sometimes you can even take one subject and teach it across the board. So one of our absolute favorite things is reading out loud. So I love to read out loud. I read out loud to my sister even in grade 12 English. she heard me read the books to her because she hates
I
reading.
could just picture you girls. Oh my gosh, that's so
Snuggling
cute.
in bed. And so I continue that tradition. I love reading and my kids love listening. So we will snuggle up, we'll make, snuggle up in bed or on the couch or wherever and have tea or something nice and cozy and we'll read together. Now, if my kids were varied in ages, we could still do that activity. And then afterwards, we might follow that up with like baking cookies because the people in the story baked cookies, or we'll learn about, if it's Charlotte's Web, one of them will do, a diagram of a pig and a younger child could make a pig out of clay or something. Like you can blend the ages into one thing,
Someone just asked a good question. What about overwhelm? Like feeling like all you're doing now is thinking about schooling your kids all day. Is that accurate?
It can be at first because you've not done it yet. So I definitely acknowledge that feeling of overwhelm when especially when you're hearing from somebody who has done it for a while and it seems like that's like the entire life, it can definitely seem overwhelming. But again, you design it how you want it to be. So if you have that feeling of overwhelm, purchase a curriculum that is already done for you and you don't even have to think about it. It's open and go. So it's just you open the book, you know what's happening that day, and then you just go and you do it. So that takes a lot of the overwhelm away. If you are pulling different pieces together to create varied curriculum, like you're taking this for math and you're taking this for reading and stuff, then it can seem overwhelming. So if that is the case, if people are feeling that way, then I would suggest finding an all-in-one curriculum that will really help to keep you grounded in, what is happening, and you don't have to kind of make it up as you go along.
Yeah, something I came across recently was this idea of trading skills with moms, or people in your neighborhood. If you happen to be in an area where there are some other homeschooling families, then think about, what your skills are, what you bring to the table, what you love to teach. And maybe there's a mom down the road that loves math and sciences, and maybe you trade that time together. I think this is really a time for us to get creative, and there will be amazing things that come out of this. There's obviously options to bring in a teacher. If you can afford to pay a tutor or a teacher for even a couple hours each week, just to check in with your child. I think that's a really important thing as we come into this, is to have a lot of buffer room in your day and to have those moments of self-care, right? So and if self-care looks like, instead of going for dinner a few nights a week, you now put that money towards paying a teacher to come for a couple hours so you can just like have a little bit of time to yourself, then, those are things that will evolve throughout the year, right? What about socializing? I saw a lot of questions about that here just now. Is that a concern?
So there's, it could be a concern during a pandemic where we're all enclosed, but that is the case for all of us, right? Homeschooling is absolutely not a concern. That was one of my biggest concerns, was, well, how do I socialize them? The problem is that there's too much socialization. So there are so many activities for homeschoolers to do that you actually have trouble finding a time to learn. So that is it's actually the flip problem, is that it's not how do I socialize my kid? It's like, how do we not socialize anymore? Because we're actually falling behind on all this work over here. So once you actually get into the community that is homeschooling, you will find there is a plethora of activities out there. There's so much to do. There are lots of like museums that have homeschooling activities. There's recreation centers that hold homeschool gym classes. Like there's so much out there when it's not during a pandemic. So what we're in right now is we're actually in crisis schooling. And that is where we're being bombarded with a lot of information and a lot of things that we don't know what to do with. And we're stuck with our kids at home and we've not done that before. And a lot of like the distance learning stuff that was so stressful in the springtime, seeing so many kids like upset and crying at their computers for like hours a day. My heart was crying so much. I
know, that is such an accurate description.
Yes.
Crisis schooling.
Yeah. And it's just not like, it's not what homeschooling looks like, which I really want to make clear. That is not homeschooling. So socialization during a time, like if we end up having another shutdown like they're doing in Australia right now, where they've had to close up again, and we're back in that, then it gets different. So in our house, we were very lenient with gaming, because our kids, like I said, they have friends like all over the place. So they have been able to connect with them through video games. They all play together. And that itself brings so much learning and leadership and like math skills and strategic skills. Like there's so much wrapped up in that. And we were okay with that. We had to be, because for the wellness of our kids and their brains and what they needed to deal with, we had to be okay with that. And so we have to shift as parents sometimes in what we are strongly believing, like, especially when it comes to things like screens. I know that's a very like tricky topic for people, but sometimes we have to consider like where they are and what is best for them in a specific time, and also what's best for us and our well-being. If we need to take breaks and not do any schoolwork for a long period of time, you have to be okay with that. And I actually had to do that this whole entire year. I was very, very sick, and we didn't know what was going on until spring. I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and I was in bed for weeks at a time. And so grade 5 for us, like, we did next to nothing. So be okay when life gets in the way, and be okay if this happens again and you have to throw things out the window because you're stressed as a parent. They're watching us, and we are modeling what this behavior looks like to deal with this. And they're going to be so resilient because they're seeing how they can handle it. They're going through big emotions, and we're able to be here with them going through those same emotions and walking them through that. And we don't have any idea how this is going to be massively important for them as they're older if we are doing it right. Like, if we are caring for them and caring for their mental wellness. And I just got goosebumps.
Me too. That is the most important thing. If the only thing our kids know and feel this year is that they are loved and seen, we've done our job. Period. Like, I know, I get teary thinking about it. I mean, that is our most important work, especially right now, right? Yes. So, okay, I want to bring this home, and I want to talk about your book. But I guess my last question as we go into your book and what you've, just so generously been showing up to share and guide mothers. And honestly, as I look through this thread, this is just one example of how supported you are as a mother making these decisions right now. The community, our collective, is so incredible. I think, especially within the homeschooling community, right, you just see so many mothers showing up for each other. And I think that's something that everyone can start to look forward to if they're making that decision. But something that I want to just end off talking about is setting that family vision for what this can be. Because if you are listening to this and you are deciding to homeschool, I think one of the things that can be really exciting is to understand that this does not have to look a certain way. This can truly be something that is so ideal for your family. And I think that's really the ethos of your book, especially by the title. It's by design. How do you want this to look and feel? Go for it, right? So what are your thoughts on that? What suggestions do you have for families brand new to this that, I guess we're struggling in that area? How does your book support them through doing that?
Really looking at the bigger picture, I think, is like a huge thing for parents to remember during this time, especially for people who are just choosing to homeschool for this 1 year, is really taking a look at the bigger picture and remembering, like what we just said, like what is the core of what we're doing. It is to hold our children up and to keep them well in their body and in their minds. But one thing that I really want parents to know is that they can do this. And I think that's really why I wanted to write this book. Was I made it so simple, so step by step. I hope that it's fun to read. I tried to make it really fun to read so that parents feel like I'm here, like totally cheering them on. I literally wrote this and put this out in 3 months. Like, I started writing it when I was feeling better in May, and this book had to get out there. It was screaming at me. It had wanted to be written for like the past 2 years, but like now it was like, it's so needed by people. And so that is why I started the group in the spring, and then I started writing this book, because you guys need it. Like, you need that guidance. You need those of us like myself who have done this. You need us to hold your hand and like guide you and show you the way, because this is a way we didn't have to deal with this when we started homeschooling, and you guys are. And so since we have this background, please like reach out to any homeschoolers. We are here to help you. We love that you guys are kind of turning this way, because it allows us to feel like we have a place to help others who might not be having any idea what they're doing, and I know it's scary. I know it's so scary for people. It's a lot of overwhelm. There's feelings of fear and anxiety around it, but it doesn't have to be, because like we're here to help you. And so really, out of all of those things, I think that's the biggest thing I wanted to say. And
your book is so divinely timed too. So the name of the book is Homeschooling by Design.
Homeschool by Design.
Homeschool by Design. And I tell everyone where they can purchase it, especially if they're not in Canada.
Yeah, so you can get it on Amazon. So it's on Amazon all over the world right now. So you can get it in the States and in Canada. My site is actually set up in the US. So it has, right now until Friday, I had this as a little promo. I'm giving it away for free, just paying shipping, handling, and taxes. So in the US right now, it's $9.99. For anybody else around the world, it's $12.99. So that is on my website, homeschoolbydesign.com. And it comes with a complimentary field guide, which was so fun to create. I'm like a big creator. I love making things. So it's about, I think it's 44 pages, and it's like a workbook for you to use as you're kind of designing your homeschool as you go along reading the book. So it goes with every single chapter and kind of takes you on a journey. It has a little map too, so you literally are going on a journey, visiting different islands that are going to teach you all the
my
steps
word.
you need.
I love that. That's so great. Genius. And you have a Facebook group as well, which is super awesome. Tell them how they can find that.
Yeah, so facebook.com/groups/homeschool by design. I'm posting, I usually go live once a week to talk about something. So on Sundays, usually this past Sunday, I talked about exactly how we plan, because that's where I am right now. I take 2 weeks off. The kids have had 1 week, and now this week they have off, so that I can plan our grade 6. And so that's kind of what I covered in that live. So if you guys are interested in learning more about how do I now go about the process of doing this, that live is in that group. It's also Shark Week, so I have a ton of cool things about sharks. If anybody loves sharks, I try and put some things in here and there when I see something cool going on in the world that we can add to our homeschool just for fun.
That's funny. So, Shark Week means something totally different in our house.
Really?
1 week a month.
I was like, what does it mean? I understand.
But you know what, guys? I know we might not have gotten to all your questions today, but Monica's group is so helpful. So definitely pop in there. It's a private group. You just request to join. And if you have questions we didn't get to, it's such a resource. I just want to thank you for many things, for the way you show up for people. You are so bright in this time right now of a little bit of darkness going on, right? And you are just such a gift to people, and your book has come in such great timing, and the way that you show up, and I love what you've modeled here. And this is something for us all to really take note of. There are specific things and experiences we've all had in our life that have led us to a moment where it's time to show up and help other people, and that's what you've done. And it honestly makes me teary, because I love what's happening through this time that can feel so divisive and disconnected and challenging. What we're seeing happen is the helpers are showing up, and you've really done that. And so you guys, you want to get her book, okay? It's like, I think just especially in the time we are here, I know in the US, many families have already had to decide what they're doing. In Canada, you have a few more weeks for sure. So, but regardless, it's always in the right timing. So make sure you pick it up. And Monica, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're just amazing. Appreciate you. So I'll end that here. I'll stay on for 5 minutes with you guys as we wrap this up, but definitely go check out. And what I'm going to do just before we end, you guys, I will strip this recording. I'll upload it to YouTube. I'll send it to you, Monica, as well, if you want to share it. And yeah, I'll have the links for her book and where you can find it there. So
thank you so much. Bye, everybody.